On a July morning in 1947, human history was supposed to change forever. The Roswell Daily Record released a global bombshell with the headline, "Military Captures Flying Saucer on Ranch in Roswell Region." This was not the speculation of a tabloid journalist, but official information confirmed by Colonel William Blanchard, commander of the 509th Bomb Group. Remember, at that time, the 509th was the most elite unit on the planet, the only ones in the world capable of maintaining and operating nuclear weapons. A military mind trained to identify every aerial threat like Blanchard certainly could not have been mistaken. Yet, that truth existed for exactly 4 hours. That very afternoon, the Pentagon ordered a total recall of all information. A second press release was issued from a higher command, claiming that Colonel Blanchard had been confused. What they found was actually just a weather balloon made of rubber and a wooden frame. How could a veteran military unit, entrusted with guarding America's atomic arsenal, fail to distinguish a pile of junk from a spacecraft? This mistake was so clumsy it was absurd. But instead of correcting it, the US government executed a lightning-fast response, cordoning off the site, confiscating every single fragment, and forcing witnesses into silence at all costs. They accepted playing the role of incompetent officials before the public to achieve a more critical objective, concealing evidence of a superior intelligence to monopolize its technology. From that moment on, Roswell became a forbidden zone of truth. The government didn't just deny an accident, they were attempting to erase an event that could have altered humanity's standing in the universe. How devastating is the truth that, for nearly 80 years, the US government has remained adamant about redacting every single document related to this case. If the military's report regarding a weather balloon were true, then the debris recovered by intelligence officer Jesse Marcel should have been nothing more than scraps of rubber and wood. But what he brought home that night defied every law of physics known to humanity in 1947. Jesse Marcel described these fragments as being as thin as the foil in a cigarette pack, so light they were almost weightless. Yet, when he attempted to strike them with a sledgehammer, not a single dent was left behind. When he tried to burn them with a blowtorch, the material remained as cold as ice. The most bizarre characteristic was its shape memory. You could crumple this metal in your palm like a piece of waste paper, but the moment you let go, it would instantly snap back to a perfectly flat state, without a single wrinkle or fold. In the 1940s, humanity had not even begun to conceptualize shape memory alloy technology. So, where did these fragments come from? The anomalies didn't stop there. At the crash site, small I-beams were discovered bearing strange purplish-pink symbols. They weren't printed or engraved, they appeared to be an integral part of the material structure. These characters looked like a bizarre hybrid of ancient hieroglyphs and complex circuit diagrams. Scientists at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, after receiving these fragments, were forced to admit in classified reports that the molecular structure of this alloy did not exist anywhere on the periodic table of Earth. It was the discovery of this material that made the US government realize they were holding a technological treasure far beyond their era. Instead of announcing it to the world, they chose to hide it to conduct reverse engineering projects. The objective was clear: to monopolize breakthroughs in metallurgy and aviation to create an absolute military advantage. Roswell was not just an accident, it was a secret arms race where the public was completely sidelined. But if those pieces of metal were inanimate, the entities controlling them were an entirely different, chilling story, one the government moved ruthlessly to silence. While the physics-defying metal fragments were enough to alarm the Pentagon, it was the discovery of biological entities at the crash site that truly necessitated an absolute veil of secrecy. This secret didn't begin with military reports, but rather leaked through a series of strange phone calls to a local mortician named Glenn Dennis. On the afternoon following the crash, Dennis received unusual inquiries from the base's mortuary officer. They weren't asking about standard caskets. Instead, they pressed him for information on how to preserve tissues that had been chemically altered and requested small, hermetically sealed coffins. Why would a weather balloon crash require advanced embalming techniques and caskets sized only for children? The answer lay at a second site, where the military had reportedly recovered non-human beings. According to the few witnesses who dared to break their silence, these entities stood about 4 feet tall, with pale, fragile gray skin. The most shocking feature was their disproportionately large heads and deep, black eyes that occupied most of their faces. They lacked external ear structures or a normal larynx, a sign that their technology far surpassed the need for vocal communication as humans know it. The moment these bodies were discovered, the U.S. government shifted from information concealment to direct intimidation. A ruthless campaign to silence witnesses was executed immediately. The local sheriff and his family were warned that their lives would be in danger if any details about the bodies ever leaked. Mac Brazier, the rancher who first reported the incident, was detained for nearly a week and forced to swear an oath of absolute secrecy. The government's fear at that time was not just about the extraterrestrials themselves, but the concern of a global crisis of faith. To admit the existence of these beings would mean the immediate collapse of human religious doctrines, scientific paradigms, and the existing social order. Consequently, they chose to hide these remains in classified laboratories for military research, leaving the world with a haunting silence that has lasted nearly 80 years. But how could they maintain such silence for so long, even as files remained tucked away in government drawers? For decades after the crash, the U.S. government insisted that Roswell was merely a routine military project that had been overblown. However, when investigators and members of Congress began to push for answers through the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, the truth emerged in a strange way, through stacks of white pages covered almost entirely in black ink. When requesting declassified documents related to the Roswell incident, what researchers received were not answers, but files obscured by heavy black redaction bars. These ink marks did more than just hide the names of key witnesses, they completely erased material analysis reports, recovery coordinates, and even notes on the condition of the entities found at the site. The question remains, if Roswell was truly just an obsolete weather balloon from 1947, why does it require security tighter than modern combat plans? Why is information about an object made of wood and rubber considered a threat to national security nearly 80 years later? This contradictory stance became even more suspicious when looking at the silence of various U.S. presidents. From Jimmy Carter to Bill Clinton, many entered the White House promising to reveal the full truth about UFOs. However, after taking office and being briefed on classified reports, they all chose to remain silent or offer evasive answers. This suggests that the Roswell incident carries a political weight far beyond the control of even the most powerful people in the world. Redacting documents is not just about protecting military secrets. It is a way for the government to control public awakening. They understand that if the text beneath those black ink bars were revealed, that we have possessed extraterrestrial technology and have deceived humanity for nearly a century, then trust in political institutions would completely collapse. The U.S. government doesn't fear extraterrestrials, they fear a loss of control. And those black ink marks are the strongest evidence that the truth is still being held captive in the dark vaults of the Pentagon. The crash at Roswell was not the product of a media frenzy or the imagination of the paranoid. The inexplicable contradictions in military reports, the physics-defying metal fragments, and the black ink staining declassified files are physical evidence that cannot be ignored. Colonel Blanchard and the retired generals were not mistaken, they were merely pawns in the longest-running information security operation in U.S. history. The truth is, the U.S. government fears Roswell not just because of the technology, but because of a total collapse of human perception. To admit that Roswell was real is to admit that humanity is no longer the center of the universe, that national borders and military dominance suddenly become insignificant in the face of a superior intelligence. The government chose denial and concealment to maintain control and to monopolize scientific breakthroughs for a secret arms race. We are living in an era where what was considered fiction yesterday may be the hidden truth of today. Roswell remains a bleeding scar in the effort to achieve transparency. It reminds us that, between the redacted lines and cold denials, there exists a staggering reality waiting to be brought to light. The universe is far too vast for us to believe we are alone. Roswell may have been the first milestone of humanity encountering another civilization, but we chose to turn our backs and bury it under layers of national security. The question is no longer, what fell at Roswell, but rather, when will we be brave enough to face the truth that we are not alone? Do you believe the explanation of a weather balloon, or the accounts of witnesses who risked their lives to protect the truth? Leave your comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next journeys into the mysteries of the universe.
Thank you for watching. If you want, you can subscribe to catch the next videos. Or, if you have more time, you can watch other videos on the channel.